Alright, now we're back and we have the new clutch on here. This is the alignment tool in here. You just shove that through the, you get the pressure plate and friction disc on here. And you just shove this, spline it into the friction disc, and then the center of it pushes into the center of the pilot bearing. So this just holds the friction disc center so it doesn't, you don't have it off center, have to fight with the transmission. Now, you want to take your pressure plate and push it onto the dowels. Make sure there should be 3 dowels on the flywheel. There's one on top, and there's one on the bottom. So you can go ahead and run these pressure plate bolts down, and these have to be torqued in sequence. So I'm going to go ahead and run those down and then talk to you about the sequence. Next, you're going to go around the flywheel with a 12.10 millimeter. And you're going to torque these down to 5 foot-pounds, and that's your first sequence. And you don't want to go just in a circle around it. You want to go like 1, 2, 3, 4. You know, just cross it over. Now the first torque sequence is done. I had to go around it about 5 times to be able to make sure that it was all at 5 foot-pounds. Because once you tighten down this side, then this side gets loosened, and you just got to go. I had to go around it probably about 5 times to get it all to 5 foot-pounds. Now the next stage is going to be torquing it all to 10 foot-pounds. Now they're all torqued to 10 foot-pounds. The next step and the final step in torquing them is going around the whole pressure plate with 20 foot-pound torque. And now it's all torqued to 20 foot-pounds. The next thing you can do is just grab your clutch alignment tool, pull that out, because this isn't going anywhere. Now the reason you want to torque this all the way around evenly is because the resistance you're feeling are these springs right here. And if they have uneven pressure on them, you'll have uneven wear on the clutch because they'll be pressing down in the wrong spot, or not the wrong spots, but just unevenly around there and creating hot spots. So you need to make sure this is all evenly torqued. Now you probably won't have to do this, but what I'm having to do here is replace this dowel pin. And it's not wanting to go really all the way in, even though it doesn't look like it's that far out. So what I'm going to do is I brought a heat gun. Now you can use you probably won't have to do this, but if you do, you can probably use a small torch or something and just heat up this area, because the aluminum will expand much larger and faster than the steel pin. So you just want to heat this up, and the dowel pin should go in there pretty easily. Now, since I realized that the T-bracket doesn't really interfere with the transmission mating up, I went ahead and put back in the T-bracket fastener right there, and also the one that holds it to the engine mount back there I also put back in. So those are both back in there. The only one that's not in there is the one on the bottom that goes to the transmission. Of course there's supposed to be 2, but this one only had 1, so that's what will be going back into it. Now, next thing you're probably going to want to do is replace your throwout bearing. It should come with a clutch kit unless you just bought a pressure plate or a friction disc, which is not recommended. But what you do essentially is you get this, you grease it up, you put it on there, and you slide the fork forward. And you can see on the back side of this there's little hooks. So you like get it behind the fork and slide it over into it a little bit, kind of pivot it because there's a little bit of play. And then that just holds it on there. Alright, next you want to set your transmission on the jack. It may actually be easier if you had a cherry picker and do it from the top, but jack is what we have right here, so you're going to set it on the jack right there. And you want to make sure your in-pit shaft is far enough away from the pressure plate that when you come up it won't hit it. And start jacking it up and try to get it level with the in-pit shaft with the friction disc splines. Now what I did to keep this kind of level is I put a piece of wood under the back side of it, and you can see it's already starting to line up a little bit. You want to watch this. You can see the back of it is getting really close to that subframe. You just want to watch that because that's where you're going to hit more than likely. Alright, so once you get it splined, you can kind of see it just hang there, and while it's hanging there you can just walk it on here. You want to make sure you get these dowels lined up, and then it'll just sit on the dowels while you put the bolts in. Alright, now we got one more bell housing bolt than we did have, because we did have this one and this one, but now we have one more right there, so we got like probably 3 out of 5 or something like that. I can't remember how many are supposed to be in here, but it's one better than it was. So next I'm going to go underneath and I'm going to put the bolt in the bottom of the T-bracket. Actually no, I should probably bolt this mount on first rather than just letting it hang here. So I'm going to jack this tranny up while it's bolted to the engine, line up these holes, and instead of the nuts coming off, the studs are actually what came out. So it's going to put the studs back through there just as if they were bolts. Alright, now while I'm just at the front of here, I'm just going to go ahead and bolt down the slave cylinder. It's pretty easy. So it's just these 10mm fasteners that hold on this bracket. The bracket holds the slave on, and then it's these 12mm that hold the slave actually to the transmission. Alright, so what we're going to do here is if we try to force this on here, the holes don't line up on the bottom, and it's just putting a lot of pressure on the fork if we were to get it to line up, which is probably engaging or slightly disengaging the clutch, which will cause it to burn up. So what we're going to do is break this bleeder screw open and then push on it, and then close it and get this back on where it should be, then close it back up, and then we'll bleed it right after. Now I have the slave reconnected, and again I will have to bleed this at the end of it. But I'm going to go ahead and reconnect the speed sensor back there. Connect the reverse switch is what I think this is. And then put this ground back on here. Alright, now you want to connect the starter. And if you watch the other video, you'll know that this starter only had one bolt in it. So that's what it's going back in with. We're just going to clock it as far as we can counterclockwise. And then tighten it down with using that one bolt. And then you're going to reconnect it, and again you should still have the ground disconnected so that you can put this bolt on without having to worry about shorting anything. And also you want to get your excite wire, of course, fed back under here, but it gets plugged onto there. Alright, another thing I'd like to say with this car and a lot of Hondas I've seen is that this is not a ground, and neither is this or that. That's not where a ground. This valve cover is insulated by rubber. These bolts here that hold it on are insulated by rubber. Everything here is insulated by rubber. So but if you do put this down, you can put the ring around this on this stud, and this contacting the stud will do it, but these right here are not grounded. So this ground right here is doing nothing. I had a friend like this that had B-series just like this, had it grounded right here, and that was the whole problem, is that it was grounded right there and didn't have enough ground, and it was arcing in the starter rather than actually starting the car. Anytime you turn the key, it would just smoke rather than start the car. So you're going to make sure you have your ground on here or there or wherever. It's just right here and right here and right there, do nothing. Alright, now we're looking underneath it, and you can see the bottom T-bracket. We're going to pry the engine back to get this hole to line up with this hole in the transmission. So we're probably going to have to get a pry bar, I can't even imagine where, but to move this engine back and get those in line. Now, next I'm going to put the half shaft in right there. I'm going to take these fasteners out that go to it. Then I'm going to put the half shaft in, and I'm going to put the bolts kind of loose. And I'm going to turn, whenever I have this in here, I want to turn the half shaft to make sure it doesn't feel like there's any binding from it being off center or just a little bit, not perfectly straight. So I'm going to make sure that everything's correct. And what I mean by resistance is right now I have the bolts in there just holding it in. So it's sagging, and you can feel that it doesn't want to turn. So what I'm going to have to do is lift it up a little bit, and it takes the load off it and just keeps the half shaft straight, and tighten it down while there's as little resistance as possible. And now it turns really easy. So that's how you want it to feel. Next we're going to go ahead and put the axles back on. This one should be pretty easy, just pop on there. The other side shouldn't be really bad either. Now this axle is popped on there. Next thing I need to do is just pull the hub out and slide the splines of the axle into the hub, and then set it down onto the lower ball joint hole, and then put the tie rod in and tighten everything down. Next, what you're going to want to do is crimp down, and you can reuse these nuts. It's not particularly recommended, but you can. What I'm going to do is just get something like this pick here, or not this pick, but this pry bar. Set it right there. You really just want to chisel. It helps the best, but you just set that right there and you just hammer it and put a little pinch down inside the metal to keep it from coming out. Now this one didn't have a lot of fluid in it to begin with, because there was a loose connector down there for the reverse switch. So what we're doing is we got 1030 fluid here. You're supposed to use Honda manual transmission fluid, but this can be used in a pinch. You can see we have this going into the fill hole right there next to the axle, and we're going to fill this up. Alright, now we're going to put the linkage back on. This one just sits up and then pushes and slides onto that bit there, and the bolt goes through it to hold it on. This one gets the pin back through it and goes onto the shaft that goes into the transmission, and then we're good. Now we have the linkages hooked up. We're putting on the wheels, and then we're going to lower it down and get ready to test drive it.
I'm test driving this car right now, and then I'll meet you over there.
Alright, so that's pretty much how you replace a clutch in one of these. It's not that difficult, but yeah, so I hope this video helped you out. Leave a like if it did. If not, leave a comment. Let me know if you have any questions. Just let me know what you guys think. Thanks for watching.